Hi there everyone, welcome to another video. This video is going to be an introduction to a series on how to play against one d4 from white. We're going to be looking at it from the black side, and what I'm hoping to do is offer a complete sort of system for black, a complete defense against all possibilities by white. It's certainly not one specific setup. It's just a way to play flexibly in the opening and maybe get the best out of your position against what sort of setup white may choose. This video is going to be the introduction to the series, and as we go through, I'm hoping to cover both the London system and the Colle to start with from white, and what setup I prefer personally, and what I think are probably black's best setups against those openings. And further down the line, we'll look up the main openings from white, and what you should play against those as well, and what your options may be. So obviously it's going to start with one d4, and I think the best move here is knight f6, keeping flexible and maintaining the possibility of playing d5 from black, or possibly playing some sort of hyper-modern setup. The idea here is that if white should not play c4 and play some other system, like a London system or a Colle or a Zucator Colle with b3, black still has the opportunity to set up what I consider the most efficient defense. So let's say white plays knight f3 here, so not committing to c4 but leaving the possibility open. I think the best move here for black is d5, keeping symmetry. And what that's doing is it's not blocking in your light squared bishop here. Your light squared bishop still has opportunities to come out to the king side. And it's also not committing this dark square bishop anyway. You still have the opportunity to play g6 in fianchetto, or play e6 and bring it out to e7, something like that. Or maybe even further out to b4, depending on what you prefer. So, part of the plan here is actually that should white play something like bishop f4, going into a London system, you can actually play c5. There's a great video done by Chess Explained on the critical line against the London system, which includes queen b6. I'll be going through that as well, and maybe trying to provide as good coverage as him, if I probably can't provide better coverage of that system than he can, but it's certainly worth going into. I don't think I should leave a gap in the series. But another idea is that after you've played d5, should white play e3, he's actually committing to leaving this dark squared bishop, his queenside bishop, inside his pawn chain, which normally indicates that he's going to play some sort of Colle setup. Now, against the Colle, this c5 and queen b6 idea is actually not so hot, because this pawn here is actually going to be defended by this bishop. And so trying to bring your queen out here and attacking the pawn, it really doesn't work very well, because it's just sort of ineffective. Your queen ends up quite misplaced in a lot of lines, and it's just not very efficient. So actually what I recommend against the Colle setup after e3 is not to play c5, but actually to play g6 here. And this is playing actually a Grunfeld setup with black. Obviously it's not the Grunfeld itself. White can still play c4 and maybe go into some kind of sideline Grunfeld, but the point is that your kingside is going to be very well defended. One of the main ideas in the Colle is to get in this e4 push, like white's going to play c3, knight bd2, bishop d3, castle short, and then maybe queen e2 and rook e1 somehow, and then try and break with e4, and maybe push e5 and sort of attack your kingside. That's generally the white setup. It's pretty much the same every time. But if you've got this fianchetto bishop here, what you can hope to do with black is maybe or maybe not push this e-pawn. You'll play bishop g7, you're going to castle, you're going to play c5 and try and hack at white's centre a little bit, and once you've broken the centre down, depending on how white recaptures, you'll probably take on d4. You're going to play c takes d4 like that, and depending on how white recaptures, if white plays e takes d4, what you can actually do is then play some sort of minority attack on the queen side. You can play like b5, a5, and b4, attacking at this c pawn that will be there. So let's give an example of something like that. If we carry on the game, so white plays g6. If black plays g6, sorry, white plays something like bishop d3, there are lots of move orders white can use. Black's just going to carry on. Bishop g7. White castles. Black castles. White plays c3. And now black plays c5. And some people might be thinking here, oh well, hold on, why can't white take this pawn? It would be very rare, certainly in my experience, for white to capture on c5. Colle players typically like to stick to the setup that they've got. They don't like to give up this d4 pawn because it's quite a strong pawn in the centre. It's taking away a lot of squares from white. It's taking away this e5 square and a lot of stuff like that. Black can play to simply hold material with a5. I think that's a possibility here. But what I'd like to do if I was black and white had tried to take this pawn on c5 and hold on to it, what I would play instead is I would play knight c6. And what we're planning to do now is we're simply planning to play e5. E5, and then these pieces are looking a bit funny on d3 and f3. After you get e5 in, then they're threatening to get forked. And white can play e4, but after you've got e5 in, then you're thinking about playing d4 and things like that. And it gives black a lot of activity, and I think it's a very sound pawn sacrifice. I don't think white gets that great a game out of it. But in general, that's the sort of idea. If white doesn't go mainline with c4. And there are other points if white after knight f6 does decide to play c4, then in that case you're going to play e6, and we'll discuss that in future videos. And obviously we'll go into the Colle and London system in a little bit more detail. And here I'll show you how, if white plays knight c3, I think we should play the Nimzo-Indian, and should white play knight f3, I think we should play d5, avoiding some of the more critical lines of the exchange Queen's Gambit declined, and I think getting a good game for black. Okay? Cheers.